Hello, everyone. Hi. I got back yesterday, evening, afternoon, sort of thing, and yes, it's kind of difficult to talk about because pilgrimage was like being in the Holy Land. It was so fast-paced, and there was so much information to take in. I feel like sandy water that hasn't settled yet. I can grab little bits, but I haven't had time to settle and go through all the sediment. Yes, and so today I'm just going to say a couple things, some feedback, and I'm just going to talk because I had took 40 hours to get from over there back to here, and I've not really had any time to prepare, so I just pray that the Spirit will give me some words to communicate. And in the future, probably after the summer, I would love to come back and do a big presentation, go through everything in more detail when it's all settled in my mind. But for now, I'll just, I'm back and I'm just going to talk for 10 or 15 minutes about my experience. So I suppose, first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone who supported me, whether it be financially or through prayer. Both of those things are really important and very much appreciated. And I raised a lot more money than I ended up using, so I'll be giving that back to the church, probably, maybe for the window donation thing. And so just to go through my basic feelings, being on pilgrimage, first of all, I went, just to summarize, I went with 24 other pilgrims from all across Canada in the Anglican Church, people from Saskatchewan, from Quebec, Nova Scotia, Ottawa, Ontario, Vancouver, and they were all so lovely, and it was really wonderful to see other people, other young adults in the Anglican Church, whether they're leaders, priests, or people who are just strong in their faith. And yeah, it was wonderful, and a lot of places that we went were really happy to see us because most of our guide, she said, most of the pilgrim groups we have are, retirees, 65 plus. And so when we would visit other Christian places, we visited the Anglican Church in Nazareth, and they were so pleased to see us, to see people at the same age as their youth and young adults, and we had some really wonderful time hanging out with Christian Palestinians there. As the pilgrimage, it's this kind of expectation that it's going to be very spiritual and very deep and changing. And the one thing that I did expect from it is when I'm going to read the Bible, I'm going to actually have a picture in my head of what it actually looked like. And when we were doing the hymn, he said, Jesus blessed the bread and broke the bread by Galilee. And I was thinking of what Galilee looked like. I was thinking of the luscious vegetation there. It's so green, it's so beautiful. It's windy too. And it's just wonderful to be able to see where Jesus grew up, where he walked around, where his ministry was, and just to see how confined the Gospels were. I thought we were going to have the stoning of Stephen as one of the readings, but we had Paul in Athens, but that's a good one too. Paul in Athens, I think my favorite bit about that reading is when he finds an idol as he's walking into Athens before he starts preaching. There's like a carving inscribed with "To an unknown God." And I think the wonderful thing about pilgrimage to the Holy Land is you get to know where God grew up, and you get to see where Jesus was. We did the passage of the cross, where we started at the governor's palace in the old city in Jerusalem, and we did the procession, the walk, and the stations of the cross to where those things happened, within, a few meters. And we went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where the tomb was and where he was laid down, where to Golgotha was, very likely. A lot of these sites, it's not confirmed, but it's very likely. And it's very strange being there. I found it peculiar. And one of the things that I did really want to talk about as like my immediate experience in the Holy Land is we went to so many sites, and a lot of the time I didn't really feel anything spiritual. I was interested in the history, I was interested in the architecture, but it wasn't like I was constantly in this feeling the Spirit's presence and stuff. And I think mostly it's because, Israel, Palestine is a different place. People still live there. The modern place now is what we should be paying attention to also. A lot of what our guides were saying was to try and peel back what you're seeing. Try and ignore that Nazareth is a town of 80,000 people and imagine it's just a small village of 200 or 300. But I'm there when there's 80,000 people. And it's important to kind of see what's in front of your eyes instead of imagining, as interesting as that is. And so we went to around Galilee, and we went to where Jesus fed the 5,000, and it was all church. It was all paved over, it was touristy, and I didn't really feel anything there. I couldn't even visualize it because there was no grass, there was no wildlife, it was all cement. Even in the courtyard where you usually have a garden, it was paved over and there was a water feature. And it was only when we started driving away that I saw the cradle of the valley and I could imagine it filled there. So I think being there, I've had to kind of see the landscape, and I love the landscape, but I also had to realize that these sites have been built over and it's hard to get much spiritually out of it because you can't really see where Jesus stepped. It's all paved over. But saying that, there are some places that really surprised me, and I really felt a lot of emotions. Some places were really difficult, like the Western Wall. There's a lot of security, there's a lot of tension, and I had a very upsetting moment there. A lot of anxiety in that area too. It's right by the old city, it's right by the Dome of the Rock. And so there's been intense experiences, there's been experiences that have really surprised me. Going to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where there's like Jesus' tomb, you had to wait in line for hours, and you have like 25 seconds to go in there and pray. I wasn't expecting much from it because we did the same thing in Bethlehem where he was born, and I went in, didn't really know what was going on. Some guy was there saying, 1 second touch. That's the Star of Bethlehem. I was like, what? They have the star? I don't know what's going on. And so a lot of the time, there was such a disconnect, and it felt like a lot of it was like trying to be holy and trying to have these artifacts and stuff, when really, just sitting in my bedroom, I could get closer to God. But it was still interesting to see this is where it happened. And I think a lot of my experience is going to be after the fact of me processing it and understanding. And when I think of the Nativity, I'm going to think of that place now. But with the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, it was the same thing. We're waiting in line for hours and hours to see a special place for 20 seconds. But this time, when I went in, there was like a stillness. I felt the Spirit there immediately around like the inner tomb. And it was just like very powerful and really touched me. And so, I don't know if like I was constantly being touched that intimately and spiritually the whole time. I don't think I would have had the capacity to do that. But God showed me many things. He showed me, and I learned a lot of the history, but there were still moments where he really touched me, and it's really special. And I don't want to diminish that by saying I went to all these places and felt nothing, because I was really touched at some places, and that's really important. And I spoke to the other pilgrims afterwards, and they had similar reactions of that. There was some things were really tough, some things were really good. It's a really mixed experience because it's a really difficult place. There's so many people there, there's so many political issues, there's so much strife and cruelty towards other people. There's also a lot of people living together, Jews, Muslims, Christians, secular people living well together, and there's a lot of discourse and violence towards each other also. So it's really a mixed place. I think another story I'll tell is by Jordan, the River Jordan. We renewed our baptismal vows there, which because of the pace, people were like ready to do it, but for me, I was like, it surprised me, and so I had to take some time and get ready and then do it. And the odd thing is, like the modern reality of the Jordan River is it's a border between Israel, Palestine, and Jordan. And so there's a bunch of people there, and there's a lot of like Catholics from like Mexico and Spain in white robes, and they're chanting and they're doing a big procession thing and they're getting baptized, which is really wonderful. But for me, it was kind of a place of unease because it's a border. There's on one side there's Israeli snipers, and on the other side there's Jordanian snipers, and so there's kind of like a standoff, and there's tension, and you know, it kind of felt like an odd place to be so vulnerable and to do something so intimate and spiritual. And some of the pilgrims, they didn't mind, they didn't care. It was just a border. What was important was the river to them. But others found it difficult because there were, you know, armed soldiers on a standoff. There wasn't any, they were just there, but it created tension. And I just feel like the whole experience in the Holy Land and living in the Holy Land is very tense, but it's also very intense in good ways and in bad ways. It's a really amazing place. And so for me, I feel like this experience has really given me a lot of stories that I need to settle in my mind. It's given me a lot of context to where Jesus was and what things were like. And yeah, I'm excited to see how those things change me in the long term. It's so hard to have such an intense experience and then, you know, a day later say, well, what did it change in you? And so I'm so grateful for being there, and I really want to do a big presentation, but I think that's all I can really express right now. Is it's very complicated, and I'd love to talk about it more. I guess the only thing that I have is I'm still unpacking, so I haven't found everything, but I have some nard from Nazareth, which I'll give to the church if we want to use that. It's the stuff Mary Magdalene poured over Jesus, the perfume, which is interesting. I also have some clementine, so if anyone wants some clementine for like herbal tea or anything, you can come find me and you can grab a few. Otherwise, I'll be around after the service if you want to ask questions. I'd love to chat more about it. Thank you.